Welcome to the Unedited Podcast.
Ooh,
That's a good little...
got some extra energy today.
I know, extra energy.
Must be the blue.
It's the blue.
I like it better than the black.
Yeah, well, the beard was having a fit over there that I was wearing too dark of colors. And so he was putting all these like white things everywhere to reflect the light and all this stuff. And then it was covering him, so I wouldn't have seen the point.
Oh,
and I was like, we can't have that.
Start.
Yeah, we couldn't start.
I don't know how to start.
Yeah, we would have been stuck here the whole time.
I don't have that voice to start this thing.
Yep, that's why you're leaving and I'm staying. But here we go. Welcome to the Unedited Podcast, where we have real conversations about real life, and we dig deeper into the weekend message as well as answering all of your questions on faith, culture, and life. And we got some questions today that we're going to answer.
You know, the beard's a little fickle.
Yeah.
Don't wear white.
Don't wear white.
You show up in black.
Don't wear dark.
And now I guess black doesn't work.
Yeah, he was having a fit that I was wearing a hat too. So I took it off and he's like, no, your head is too shiny. And I was like, well, okay, sorry, I don't have any hair. Like, I can't control that. I know.
Well, there's ways.
There is.
You probably should.
It's a little rogue.
Should look at some of those.
I think
no. Go for the wig.
The wig. Toupee.
Go for the full toupee.
Fly to Turkey and get a hair transplant.
Dude, you can change it every week.
Oh boy.
You know what I mean? Like, so do your daughters do this? So Farrah loves to take her hair and like flip it over, and it's like this total different look.
Yeah.
And she has like a name for this character she becomes.
Awesome.
That could be you, depending on what hair you're wearing.
I was giving one of my kids a piggyback ride, and their hair was draped over my head.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was such a good look. I mean, I loved it. They were like, ew, Dad, that's gross.
Well, there might have been a conversation last week. I don't think you were in the room, but the conversation, I think it was at weekend team meeting, but the conversation was, what if Todd grew out his mustache and then began to wrap it over the top?
True. Yeah.
And somebody had a picture of what it would look like.
Yeah, like a beard over, but it's like a comb over, but with the...
That's a good look.
I mean, well, I don't know if it's a good look, but it could work.
You could not wear a hat on the pod.
That's true. It would solve David's problems.
Yeah. You wouldn't be as shiny.
This is a treat, though, because this is the last day with this mustache. So treat for...
Is it the last day?
Yeah, I got to get rid of this thing, man.
Wow.
Because we had it through mustache.
So have you enjoyed it?
To a certain point.
Maybe the real question is, has Rachel enjoyed it?
No, she hasn't. That's why people are like, dude, just keep it. Why? And I'm like, because I want to kiss my wife again. Like, I'm getting rid of this thing. So yeah, it's gone. This is its final day.
You got anything exciting for like shaving it and it being gone?
No, just freedom.
Okay.
You know, just letting
could have
it loose.
Made some money. You work with youth. You could have made some money.
I know. Well, I've done that multiple times throughout my ministry, is like deals with them. Hey, if we get this many students to show up, we can shave it. So I have a picture, or a series of pictures of them shaving it on stage in front of all the students.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's
amazing.
Been cool. So, on to some more important things. This is your last episode for 3 months.
This is it.
How are you feeling about that?
It feels really good. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
and
that's
although I was telling somebody yesterday at church, like, this doesn't feel like work. And so I'm like, I might show up and hang out. We'll see how it goes. See when I'm in town, see what you've got planned, and come say hi, that kind of thing. But so yeah, it really doesn't feel like work. So it technically felt like it was weird yesterday going home and my brain not even firing on when am I up again?
Yeah.
What's next week? What do I need by Tuesday? It's staff meeting this week. Like, oh, I got to get staff meeting together. When am I going to, you know what I mean? Like your brain, Sunday afternoon for me, my brain's already firing on what does a week look like.
That's crazy. So any of our viewers and listeners that don't know what's going on, John is taking a 3-month sabbatical to rest, recharge, and just be able to celebrate his amazing ministry over the last however long it's been.
Celebration for sure.
So it's super cool that he's doing that, but we are going to be sad about the podcast, but we're not stopping. Just because you're not here.
Can't stop, won't stop.
We're not stopping. I've gotten so many questions. Hey, what are you going to do with the podcast? We're going to keep doing the podcast.
What are you going to do with it?
So we do have a lineup of incredible people that are going to be on the show. So we will have people that you may have seen around church. Maybe you don't know that well, but different staff and different lay leaders in the church are going to be with us. So next week, we're going to have somebody named Kelly, who's actually leading worship this last week. She was on at our Prescott location yesterday.
All I got to say, if Kelly's on, buckle up.
Buckle up. She is a life coach. She's got a ton of great things to say. So much energy, so much fun. So, but we'll be doing, every week with somebody different. We'll get to hear from different voices.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool.
You know what might happen? you might go through the 3 months and be like, yeah, we don't want to go back.
That's true, because here's the thing: we get you every week. It's like it's like a solid plate of vanilla ice cream.
Yeah,
and so we're gonna get
whoa. Why vanilla?
Because we're adding some chocolate syrup in here. Wow, it's gonna get pretty good. We're gonna
went
get crazy.
Straight to the vanilla. I'm glad. I'll only accept it because vanilla is the number one flavor when it comes to ice cream for people.
Okay,
they've done research and
well, I mean, I think that does speak to the type of people that are getting
no, but this is like cross country. Cross country. Vanilla is their jam. Okay, so when you go somewhere, do you pick chocolate or vanilla?
Not neither.
What do you pick? Oh, you probably pick some like weird.
Something weird?
You know, like pomegranate.
No, dude. No. Come on now.
Salted caramel, Post Malone, Oreo.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Let's
but
get
what do
this
you put
thing
in?
going.
You put in vanilla.
That's true. Vanilla could be a good base.
Yeah,
could be a good base. But what we're doing is we're going to add some other more nuanced episodes. So, for instance,
man, if we were live right now, we'd run a poll.
We would, yeah. You could
win.
still throw it in the comments here and let us know.
Just let us know.
But I'm trying to make a point here, and you just keep distracting me with the ice cream.
Here's what I really want you to do. I'm going on sabbatical. I don't care.
I know, we can tell.
Okay, so what I would really like to happen is, would you bring Todd your choice of ice cream?
Ooh.
So if you're vanilla, bring him vanilla. And it doesn't even have to, you can bring him a soupy bowl of vanilla. I don't even care. It doesn't have to be cold.
I'm going to get bombarded with some vanilla ice cream.
But you need to bring him your choice. No, it's their choice, right?
Their choice.
So this is our poll. Did they bring you? This is the ice cream I want.
Okay.
This is what I like.
Good. Also,
then
I'm
you
going to
get
have
to
to
try
get a
it all.
second freezer to contain all this ice cream that I'm getting.
Perfect.
But okay.
You and the beard.
That's good. Yeah, me and David will taste test some stuff. It'll be pretty awesome. What I've been trying to say for 5 minutes now, and I want to let our listeners and viewers know, is that we're going to have some episodes focused on some different things because of the guests that we have in the seat. So, for instance, we have a theologian, someone who is a college professor, has a doctorate degree, all these amazing things.
He's going to be way smarter than me.
And so we're going to be able to ask him questions focused on some of those more deep theological questions. We're going to do an episode coming up, and I'll give you more information as we get close to who's in the seat for our guests, but we're going to do one that's focused completely on marriage. So any marriage questions that you have, we want to just unpack that with some professionals in the field of marriage counseling. So
nice.
Do some cool stuff like that. But
I'm
the podcast
I'm going to have to listen now. You got me intrigued.
Yeah, you're going to have. And now that you're just a listener, you can review the podcast.
Oh, I'll review it. All right.
Anyone can review the podcast by giving us 5 stars at the Apple Podcast Store. Go ahead and review, rate and review right now.
Mine's going to be the only one that's a 1-star.
I know, dude. You can't mess up our. Can you delete review? Is that possible, Beard? Yeah. Okay.
You can delete them.
Yeah. So we can report him. This guy's trolling us.
Get him reported.
Yeah. Wait, so who are you reporting? One of the hosts of the show?
Yeah, he's a co-host on it, but we're reporting him. So there you go.
All right. Well, we do have some questions we want to get to right now, and we're going to get to our weekend as well. But I'd love to just ask you this, especially as you're heading into a time where you get to do some more spiritual reflection and things like that too. But I think we've all suffered from this. Have you ever had a spiritual slump? Anonymous asking this question, by the way. Annie says, have you ever had a spiritual slump? How did you come out of it? And how do we stay out of it?
Ooh. Okay, first of all, what do you think a spiritual slump is? How would you define it?
So my definition is going to come straight from baseball here.
Okay.
When it comes to a slump. So as a baseball player, if you are not hitting well and it's been a few games, you haven't got a hit, you refer to them as being in a slump.
Okay.
So I would say spiritually in a slump, or for me, what I would define it as is like just those times where it feels like, man, I'm not really connecting with God. Like my walk doesn't feel like it's in a healthy place. And I just feel like, man, maybe I'm just going through the motions, but not really connecting with God.
Okay. Yeah, I think when you put it in baseball terms, the word productive comes to mind, right? Like I'm not producing at the rate that I know I can. And that could be outwardly. I think there's a spiritual slump that happens like for us that, we're in this full time, but I think you can also be going through the motions and it feel lifeless.
Yeah.
And so, there's moments for me, it doesn't really happen on a stage setting. Like the stage feels different. Like it feels, there are weekends where it's like, I don't feel like talking, right? Like I don't feel like I have this or whatever. It feels like maybe you're going through, but those are so rare. Versus when it comes to leading teams, or it comes to setting up an event, or it comes to like, it can feel very much like, hey, I don't have it, and this is a grind to do.
Right.
And then, so there's obviously the production side. So for some people, and I don't know who Annie is, obviously, but there's the side of a spiritual slump of I'm in a serving role and it feels empty. It feels hollow, right? And so there's that slump. And then there's the slump that you mentioned of, connectivity with God, of God feels different, which we talked about in the critical journey of just, it could be because of a wall, could be, hey, I'm in the journey inward and I'm in a season of growth, but it's coming through really hard questions. I was actually sitting with somebody yesterday who, I wouldn't say they're in a spiritual slump, but I would say they're really, really wrestling with, I have these questions that I can't find answers to. Mm-hmm. And I just encouraged them, keep asking the questions. Keep the next question that God puts in front of you, just sit with that one. Right. And however long it takes to get to not an answer that satisfies you, but to a place where your soul goes, I'm either okay trusting God with this one, or God's revealed something that now pushes me further into another one. And so, yeah, I think for me that the spiritual slump, like we've all had those moments where, man, I just feel like I'm going through the motions with my quiet time. I actually told you and SLT, our senior leadership team, that I bought a new Bible for this year. And the purpose in buying a Bible was there was this one had just come out and there was no verse breaks. There was no headings that are in your Bible. And it's been life-giving to me because before that, I was finding that like I'm reading and I'm counting how many verses are left to the end of the chapter. Or I don't know if you ever do this. I open it up and I go, oh man, this has 64 verses.
It's a long one.
I'm exhausted today. You know what I mean? Like, so to me, that would be a spiritual slump of I'm going to read, but I don't want to read. Like, and so for me, I've found that I have to switch it up. I have to change it. And so when I change it, and I've been reading this one, it's been like, I feel like probably not daily. That's an exaggeration. Maybe like 2 times, 3 times a week. I'm like, I don't remember this. I don't remember this story going with this one. Like I don't, and some of that is just the format change that forces you to go, wait, Jesus went straight from that to this. Mm-hmm. That question was asked, and that's why Jesus went on 3 different parables. And so, yeah, so it's been, for me, that would be an example of prayer life would be another one. I'm actually, one of the things for my sabbatical is I've already ordered it and I couldn't wait. I've already read chapter 1 over the weekend. And it's on prayer. It's Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools by Tyler Stanton, because I just feel like my prayer life needs life. Right. And so, that's another way is bringing in other resources to go, like the pod, right? To something that just helps trigger you to have fresh thoughts or fresh conversations with God. But,
yeah, I'd say the same thing, just switching it up. And anything that helps me engage in the reading instead of just doing the reading. Like I'm really good at checklist and like getting through it. But, a famous quote, I think we've even said it on here, we read to get through the word instead of allowing the word to get through us.
Yeah.
And so anything that helps me engage. So, and I've done this journal type Bible that has space for journaling that's been really helpful for me. I've been doing that daily, but a couple weeks ago, the young man that I'm discipling and I get to sit down with, we decided, hey, we're going to read through the book of John together, and every day we're going to text each other what we got out of it. And so there's an accountability piece of like, I know I got to do this because he's expecting a text, and then vice versa. But also when you got to write a summary of it to send to somebody, you got to engage in what you're reading.
Yeah.
So that has brought a new life to what was starting to get a little bit stale, even with just my normal stuff. Yeah. So it's like anything to just re-engage and not allow things to get stale, I think gets you out of the slump.
Yeah. That reminds me, I downloaded the Day One journal. I actually downloaded it a couple of years ago, but really started to use it this year. And some of it had to do with my hand, right? Like typing notes into my phone as a journal, it was just way too hard or way too slow. And so what I've been doing is kind of what you're saying. If something stands out to me, I'll voice text into this journal. And I've got this log now of walking through scripture things that have stood out, and it's been really super life-giving.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think too, when we say spiritual slump too, is just recognize like you're not always going to be on the mountaintop. And there's a song my wife actually has been listening to in this season. It's called Flowers, and the whole premise is that it's in the valley where I've been planting seeds and I've been watering them the whole time, and you're going to be able to see them as you come out of the valley. You're going to look and go, oh, there was flowers the whole time. And it's that idea, right? Like in a slump, you may feel like, man, I don't see any good. I don't see. Just keep pressing in, keep finding ways to do things different. And then as you come out of it, you're going to turn around and go, God was working the whole time. So,
yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, thank you for submitting that question.
Hey, I have a review before the next question.
Oh boy.
You ready? Because we didn't do a 5-star review. So this is a verbal review.
Okay.
Which you can give verbal reviews.
That's
we
true.
like verbal reviews. So there's a family that I got to meet this weekend, and I believe her name was Summer. His name is Cody. Got 2 cute little kids. But Summer talked about how much she loves the pod.
Oh, awesome.
And she's like, her exact words were, I feel like I really, really know you, but you don't know me at all. You know, like one of those where she was genuinely excited, and she was talking about how life-giving the pod's been and that thing. So
that's good. Yeah, that's amazing. It was Love cool to hear that. I will take that as a 5-star.
That's a 5-star.
I'm going to go ahead and say that's
a 5-star.
That's good. That's good. We do have another question here.
We start logging 5 stars for
we have like
creating an account.
Yeah.
Summer says.
We're adding them for them. That's good. Whitney asked this question. She says, which Hebrew lexicon would you recommend? And I'm throwing that to you because here's the deal.
Wow.
I'm not that smart. So there you go. And to be honest, we should have waited for our theologian who's going to be sitting in that seat in a couple of weeks.
I think you should ask him when he gets here.
You had to call him for the answer.
I did. I called him to confirm my answer. So there you go. That's how it works. So let me pull it up real quick. So for me, and I think this is probably an important piece of the conversation of people looking at us and going, how do you stand on a weekend and have confidence in what you're saying about, or where do you find that insight to that passage, or where? So an example from this weekend, we talked about the praetorium, right? Like that Jesus was led into the palace, and so looking that word up and then researching how was it used, and that's where you get into like the culture of, hey, this was in the center of their headquarters, which often was a palace. But if they were out and about, it was in an encampment. So a lot of times people are like, well, where do you get that stuff? So
there's hours and hours of study and research that goes into all this. We don't just know this stuff off the top of our head.
Yeah, and one of the beauties of technology is people have given their lives to provide resources for anyone, but specifically we use them. And so we use Logos. And the whole beauty behind Logos is I can put in this case, I could put in an Old Testament passage. It pulls up the Bible, pulls up commentaries, pulls up in-depth kind of word-by-word commentaries. But then it also allows you to click on it in a way that opens up to a lexicon. And so this is the one that when that happens, this is the one that for me, I find myself in the most. But it's the Enhanced Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew and English Lexicon. The hyphenation for that is the BDB. So there you go. That's the one. That's the one I used, and that's what I was asking the professor that will be here. That's what I was asking the professor is this widely accepted? And he's like, absolutely. Like, educational facilities, all of that, this would be one that they would recommend.
There you go. So Whitney, hopefully you just took that little snippet and that's the one you're going to go for.
Pause it and write it down.
That's amazing that you are looking to purchase a Hebrew lexicon. That's
and Whitney, awesome. I would say if you're at that point that you're looking for a lexicon, I would look into Logos software. They have some great kind of base level jump ins that I'm sure that lexicon would be a part of it. So you may find that you get more, even though there's a subscription to it, you may get more out of your study because you'll have other resources as well.
Yep. That's good. Let's hop into discussing this last weekend. Man, incredible to hear, not just knowing that the last words of Jesus were incredibly important. We should lean in, listen to those, just as well as all of his words, but the last words are something about him. But man, anytime the topic of forgiveness is talked about, it feels like chains are broken on a weekend, which is just incredible. And just want to hear from you. How did it feel for you, not only giving that message, but just seeing the people that needed to hear that message yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I need to be clear. There's zero intent of leaving, right? But there's also a point of, hey, this is my last message for 3 months. Mm-hmm. I was very aware, I'm not going to hold a microphone for 3 months. I'm not going to speak publicly for 3 months. There's no, and that's probably important for people to know. It's not like I have now filled my calendar with all these other opportunities and other, like there's literally nothing, there's no speaking engagements.
By the way, for other people to know too, you could go out and probably make $100,000 over the next 3 months speaking all across the country.
I need your contacts.
but
you could do something, right? Like, and so for me, I was acutely aware this weekend. It was a really beautiful moment. I felt like it was between God and I of just this deep soul satisfaction that if this was my last message that I ever gave at Heights to this family group, this is so important.
Yeah.
Right. Like it just had that weight to it, but in a good way. I got to walk away from the weekend and go, that's probably one of the most life-giving messages. And we talk about it all the time, or not all the time, but often it comes up. Forgiveness is one of those that we could probably hit every 6 months because we live with people, we deal with people. We're going to be hurt. We're going to carry stuff. And we're just not good at walking through the forgiveness process.
Yeah.
And so, it felt this weekend, those of you that know Charlie and Kathy were at Paulden and stopped by to talk to me in person because forgiveness, and someday we'll tell their story.
Well, we've had them on stage doing that years ago, but even
today, even yesterday, hearing stuff from Charlie, I was like, I've never heard that. How do I? And to hear it again, like it's one of those that you just can't hear enough. Mm-hmm. And to hear him talk about being able to sleep that first night, to hear him talk about just the weight being lifted and the freedom. And so it was stories like that this weekend that different people had that are just so life-giving.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that, the idea that forgiveness, when we hold unforgiveness, there's physical health ramifications to that. And there's so many different things that we think we are hurting or bringing justice to the situation or hurting the other person or whatever by not forgiving and holding back. But really, we're the ones that is suffering in that. And Jesus, being on a cross, was able to just forgive. And that's just wild. I was sitting with a group of men that I meet with every Monday morning this morning, just talking to them and saying, the crazy part is that as a human, there's a time between an incident and forgiveness where we kind of sit in it. And Jesus on the cross forgave while it was still happening. And I'm like, man, my question to the guys around me was, do you think I'll ever get to a place of maturity in my faith where I'll be able to instantly forgive and not have to go through that? And, their answer was kind of like, dude, I don't know if we ever will. I think we're never going to be in process like that, so it's just crazy.
Again, we're so fickle, right? Like my, you can speak of, and this didn't happen, but it's happened in the past for sure. You speak a message like that, and within the next 24 hours, either something at home, something at work, something, somebody cuts you off in traffic, and all of a sudden you're just like,
I'm not forgiving you.
Yeah, you're just, well, you're not even having a forgiveness conversation. You're just angry.
Right. Oh, that's good. So my question is this though, if we go through this, like knowing, okay, physically there's ramifications, spiritually there's ramifications, like all these things, then what is it inside of us that holds us back from forgiving?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we're scared I think we're scared because we think forgiveness is releasing the other person from everything they've done. Mm-hmm. And so in that, there's a level of control. There's a level of justice, right? That if you've harmed me and I choose to go before God, what we know about God is what? He's going to forgive. right? Like we just know that. Like that's one of those requests that every single time God is going to answer, right? So now I choose to go before God and release you.
Right.
Well, now I've lost all control. I've lost. I'm truly trusting God to be faithful in your life and walk you through owning your actions and walking through what you need to walk through. And I'm saying I'm not the person to do that. I think that's what gets people hung up the most, is this idea that I don't want to let you go scot-free.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm going to play God and be the judge and make sure that this, and all the while, it's actually hurting me, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the releasing of that, it feels like justice wasn't met.
Yeah.
They didn't get what's going, so I'm holding on to this. And I think some of it too is just the deep wounds, man. Sometimes it's just hard to let go because it hurts so bad.
Yeah.
And the things, if you go through the list, and this is why I think it's incredible that Jesus is the one giving us this example. Yeah. Because Todd can stand on stage and say, forgive, and people can say, well, you don't know what was done to me. And when they tell me, I go, yeah, that's really crazy. That's never happened to me. I don't know if I could. Yeah. But I'm not saying it. Jesus is. And Jesus, who suffered every single thing that we have suffered or felt to the max, including the sin of the world on his shoulders, all those things, Jesus then said, forgive. That, I think, is the kicker here, is like, sometimes we don't forgive because we feel like the pain is too deep. Can you imagine the pain that Jesus was feeling when he said, forgive them?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to make light either of that, right? Like I don't want somebody listening who horrific things have been done to them.
Right.
I actually think there's I'm not recommending this book, but there's a book, Stumbling Towards Faith. And it was written by a lady who was abused by her dad. And her dad would use scripture and hymns while abusing her.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's this deep, like there's obviously the horrific, it's your dad, the person that should protect you, that is now the one abusing you. But on top of that, now he's using spiritual language and standing in the seat of God and doing those things. And so you can imagine for this lady that the trauma, the mental, I don't even know what to call it, like hurt, pain, suffering, to then try and find her own faith. And so that's why the book's called Stumbling Towards Faith. And I just appreciated it so much because it was such an honest look at, that's something in my life that I've never had to forgive at the level that she's having to forgive.
Right.
And so who am I to judge whether it takes, she can do it today and this daily process happens for the rest of her life. It's easy for us to stand, or at least for me, to stand on stage and go, look at Jesus's example, right? And yet to walk that out is so painful.
Right.
And again, going back to the pain, right? That it's hurt me so much. And now I'm going to choose to say, Dad, you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Dad, I choose to go before God and forgive. I mean, it's just, it's such a hard thing for us to do as humans.
Yeah. Forgiveness itself is just such a crazy concept with that releasing and that. And then, to realize what Jesus did with us.
Yeah.
Right. We forgive because we've been forgiven.
Yeah.
That's why we forgive.
The whole premise.
So when we realize that, but it's so hard because blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yes. Not discounting that it's hard. Jesus did that for you.
Yeah.
That was done for you. And that's
where we clean ourselves up, right? Because it's easy for me to talk about, I think her name was Renee's dad, right? Like, so it's easy for me to talk about that without actually slowing down to go, hey, the same sickness that's in him is prevalent in me. The same enemy of God that he is what I was, right? Like there's just this deep reality that we forget, we clean ourselves up, right? Yep. Like, oh, at least I haven't done that. Right. And in reality is we're the same.
Yep. We're the reason Jesus was nailed to a cross.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we do have some follow-up questions within this idea of forgiveness that we got into. And so we'll get a little more practical in to that in a second, but first we have this question from Lynn. Lynn asks this. She says she recently listened to a podcast where it was said that there's one sin which guarantees you're not actually saved, and that sin being unforgiveness of something or someone. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, Lynn, hi. We're glad you're listening. I struggle to know wherever the podcast was, where that thought's coming from scripturally. The only place I can put it is the unpardonable sin, which my understanding of the unpardonable sin is not forgiveness, right? Like it's actually blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, which, as I've studied it, where I've landed on that is it's actually unbelief. It's me choosing to not recognize God as God. It's me choosing to not recognize Jesus as my Savior, right? Like that's the only thing that Jesus can't save, right? Like it is unbelief. And so for me, then this idea of bringing forgiveness in, the only place that this is to the measure you are forgiven, you will be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's talking in the context of your salvation. I think that's talking in a deep context of how we treat others. That if I know forgiveness, right? Like, and so back to what you were saying, if I know everything I've been forgiven and I choose willfully to not extend that to another human being, right? Like, well, okay, now I'm limiting my forgiveness. And this is kind of, what's the story? I'm going to butcher this. It's the story Jesus told where the guy goes before, I think he's a king, and he owes like this astronomical amount of money. And he should have been thrown in jail for the rest of his life. He gets essentially pardoned, walks outside, sees one of his servants who owes him far, far less, and does the exact same that should have happened to him, throws him in jail. And and then obviously the king brings him in. It's unacceptable, right? That you wouldn't do for someone else what's been done for you.
Yep.
And so I think that's more of a practical how I live out my faith. I don't think that's connected to whether you can actually be saved or not, or whether you can lose your salvation.
Right. I would agree. I think it's there's a church that uses some of their language that we unpacked, like with what Heights uses. These are our values. This is what we care about. And then one of the things that they say is forgiven people forgive people. So if you are forgiven,
that's good.
Then you forgive people. That's what you do. That's who we are. Like that's,
Well, and I like that because that ties into what you teach so well as your identity, right? Like you when you remember your identity is I am forgiven.
Yeah.
Then I live out of that.
Yeah. And I think that is specifically what, this passage that I'm assuming that where they got this from is like, hey man, if you've been forgiven, you forgive. It's not saying if you don't forgive, then you will not be forgiven, because God's work on the cross has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
So you can't say, well, God goes, well, I died for you and you didn't forgive, so I didn't die for you. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Jesus died for all.
That puts the control of the gospel in our hands.
Right. And it's not in our hands. So, with that idea, with that being said, this is not something you're going to lose your salvation over. If you're, writing this question going like, hey, what's going on? Can I lose my salvation if I don't forgive someone? No, but you are going to limit how you live out.
You might just have a lot of anxiety, stress, and physical ailments.
Right. But
Well, how can you ever share the gospel?
Right.
Because it goes back to that identity piece, right? Like me understanding forgiveness for me, that is the gospel. To then live out or give away, well, I can't give it away if I'm limiting it.
Yeah, agreed. Another question here on this idea of forgiveness. Anonymous asks this question. So Annie's writing in again with this one, which, by the way, if you would love to submit a question, go ahead and submit it.
If your name is Annie, you're like...
you're like, why are these all about me? You don't have to use your name. You can't have it anonymous like this. But this question goes along with this idea of forgiveness. What does loving my enemies actually look like? Especially in the context of forgiveness and setting boundaries, how do I love my enemies? And I would assume that most of the forgiveness opportunities that you have to do, not all, but most of them are someone that we would categorize in our head as an enemy. Someone that has done something horrible to us, or someone that has stabbed us in the back as a friend or whatever, where we are going, man, they're my enemy. But the Bible says love our enemies. So how do we reconcile both? Like, what do we do?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I got to go back to the person of Jesus, right? And so when Jesus, being the one that says, love your enemies, I have to look at the context he lived in. And he lived in the context of Rome, right? Like that, or lived in the context of the Jews, but also under Roman oppression. And so he wasn't born free. He was born into occupation. He was born into a country that was overly taxed. He was born into a country where those that were oppressing were also abusive. And so there's just layer upon layer of what it looked like. And then you get to the cross, and now the enemy is the one putting him on the cross, but it's also the religious leaders who are enemies of Jesus as him as Messiah. And so again, if we follow the kind of the trail of the weekend, and you follow it to that point, then you've got to look at what he did on the cross and go, when he says, Father, forgive them, he's looking at his enemies who are mocking him and going, they don't get it. Right. And so I think there's a piece of it. What does it look like? I think you have to look at the person of Jesus and go, how did Jesus physically walk through? Because the idea of Jesus is, you go back to the spiritual, the critical journey, and the idea is we reflect God. So this is God in human form to show us what God is like.
Yeah.
How did he treat him? What did that look like? And then on top of that, there's, and then maybe the conversation gets a little bit confused, where forgiveness doesn't mean no boundaries, right? But forgiveness, I can truly forgive and set healthy boundaries. And so somebody who is an enemy, somebody who you would consider has done wrong in some way, shape, or form, then that person, what does it look like to set boundaries that are healthy with that person? Right? Like, well, they're probably going to be limited in access to your life.
Right.
It might mean that you, for your sake, need to go, you know what? My social media is for people that I actually want in my life. I'm going to choose to use the block feature because it's a healthy boundary for me, because you will use this against me, right? Like, I'm going to choose to block a phone number because contact is not healthy for me. That is, and somehow we've got that too. Well, that's not you loving your.
Yeah,
well,
I think
I don't think Jesus sat down on the beach after and had breakfast with the soldiers that had put him on the cross. He sat down with his disciples, right?
Yeah, I think the definition of loving is what's gotten clouded. And I think we live in an age where if anything goes against what I want you to do, then it's not loving. And we like to throw out that, you're hating or whatever. And we throw that out a lot, where like love means having tough conversations. Yeah. Love means setting boundaries. Love means doing what's best for the other person. The analogy, I guess, or even more of a real conversation, is with somebody who struggles with drug addiction. Yeah. A loving thing is not giving them what they want. Yeah. Right. You can't, it's saying, no, I don't want you to be in this. Yeah. But they're going, but I want this. Would you say you were loving them if you just continued to give a drug addict some drugs? Yeah. No, you'd be like, you're not loving them well. But it's what they wanted. So I think it's not always just giving people what they want. So we have to define this idea of loving our enemies, is what's best for them and best for you. And sometimes what's best is a boundary. Sometimes what's best is that, hey, I'm forgiving you. So I'm releasing myself from you. I'm not wishing ill on you, but I'm also never going to see you again. And that is a boundary that's in place to love you well. Yeah. The act of loving you has already happened because I forgave you, and I don't wish harm upon you. Yeah.
A great book on boundaries is unedited, so I can't remember. So here we go.
Sounds like a good book.
Goodbyes and Good Boundaries. Oh man, I'm butchering it. It's by Lisa Turkhurst. Okay. Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. I think that's what it's called.
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. So I got gray hair, so I can't remember. Gray hair steals your memories, just so you know. But I would agree.
When you have no hair?
I don't know.
The memories just escape. There's nothing to hold them in. They just float away. They're gone.
Oh man, it's so good. I think what you said, what I would add to it is, and I think I learned it from that book. That's why that book came to mind. But boundaries are setting expectations, right? So let's take a not extreme, I'm cutting this person out of my life, right? Like, or I've got to set like that kind of boundary. But what a boundary does is it sets expectation of, my wife did it with me, right? Like, hey, I'm not going to have the conversation if you're going to let your emotions get to the point that you raise your voice to a point. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have the conversation when we're verbally raising our voices at each other. And so a boundary that she set for me that created an expectation is if I want to have the conversation, I need to control my emotions. Well, that was an amazing thing to grow me up, mm-hmm. right? And that wasn't her not loving me. It was actually her loving me enough to go, hey, I'm going to create a boundary that creates an expectation of what our marriage will be like.
Yeah.
And thank God, because today, like in our house, it's a rare thing that our voices get raised. Well, it's not hers, it's mine, right? Like it's a rarer thing now because I've learned self-control through walking with God to be able to sit in that moment and go, this is a healthy expectation of this conversation. And I think the same, whether it's a drug addict, hey, there's expectations of how you're going to act. You're going to go to a certain amount of recovery meetings, right? Like you're going to do the work. And if you choose not to do the work, that's you crossing the boundary. The expectation's clear. Then we've got to revisit and set different expectations because now you become unsafe to be around. Mm-hmm. And so I just think you gotta be willing to sit and go, creating a boundary is loving and it's creating an expectation for this relationship that's healthy.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is extreme of, hey, what's healthiest for you is we can't do this. This is just putting us in a spiral every time. So it's a great question.
That's good. Great question. Thank you so much for writing that in. And if you do have a question that you would like for us to answer on the podcast about anything and everything, go ahead and email unedited@heightschurch.com and hopefully we can answer those questions for you.
Send some really, really hard questions for the next 3 months.
Do it. Send some hard ones. We'd love for that to come in. We'd love any of those questions. Specifically, just letting you know right now for next week's episode, we do have somebody who is a life coach on. So if you have questions about anything that life coaches would answer, go ahead and throw those in because she will be here and willing to answer those. But if you have made it this far for the last time for the next 3 months, you've made it into the podcast club. That was good. Man, I'm going to miss that. That's good stuff.
I'm not going to remember it.
I know. You're going to come back and you're going to be like, I don't know, singing some other weird song or something. Yeah. Did you record that one? That was a good little snippet too. But if you did make it this far, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Please rate, review, share with whoever is in your life that you think would benefit from this content because it is because of you that we even have this show. So thank you guys so much for that. Final thought for you today. Sometimes we hold on to what somebody has done and we holding our forgiveness in a way to punish them when really we're the only one being punished. So giving our forgiveness is just taking another step to be like Jesus because Jesus forgave us and forgiven people forgive people.
So good.
Thank you guys so much for being with us. We love you and we'll see you next week.
Love you guys.